Hi, welcome to my channel. This is Quest for Faith, and I'm Brian. And today we're going to dive into the topic of Lent. It's Sunday before Lent, and before Lent season starts, and it's just 3 days away now. And let's kind of dive into it. We're going to talk about what my experience was growing up in Lent as a Church of Christ Protestant, and just some ideas I have rolling around in my head coming into this Lenten season. So please, before we get started, make sure you like, share, and subscribe. Really do appreciate those subscribers. And let's dive into it. So first off, what is Lent? Now, if you're Catholic or a mainline Protestant church, you're going to know what Lent is. Or maybe you've seen the, what's that, 40 Days movie that's kind of making a mockery of Lent. Lent is essentially starting on Ash Wednesday, which is coming up here this week. It's 40 days out from Easter, and we typically use this time to sacrifice something, as in a deed, or give up something for that 40 days to bring us closer to Christ, to bring us closer to being those saints that we've been called to be. And typically when you talk about Lent, most people, it's a negative. They take something away, and which I think is well and good. And I'm definitely going to be jumping on that bandwagon myself this Lenten season. But what was Lent like for me growing up as a kid? So like most of y'all know, if you've watched any of my other videos, I grew up Church of Christ, and we didn't do Lent. Ever. I knew what it was vaguely, but it was just never something we did. We definitely would celebrate Easter, but Lent was not on the cards. So as an adult, first trying to do Lent, for those cradle Catholics that are watching this, y'all have been doing Lent since you were little. For me, I didn't really start doing Lent until a few years ago. My wife and I started talking about it. She took it way more serious than I did. She grew up Methodist, and the Methodist Church does do Lent. Not as hardcore as the Catholics, but they do Lent. But last year was the first year I really dug in and really challenged myself with Lent. And it was very rewarding. And so coming up on this Lenten season, I had a few thoughts in my head about just options for you for Lent. And so to kind of walk you through what's going on in this noggin of mine, I was watching a video a few weeks ago of a priest, and he was reacting to the movie Nun, and The Nun. And it's a horror flick where there's some demons that have possessed a few nuns in a convent, and they're going in there to exorcise the demons. And one of the things that this priest brought up was, he said, you do need to be careful about what you're watching and seeing, because your ears and your eyes are kind of the window to your soul. And you've heard that before. I mean, I know I've heard that before. But then it kind of drove home even further, because I was listening to Father Ripperger. And if you don't know who Father Ripperger is, he's a fairly famous priest that's an exorcist. I don't think non-Catholics are going to know who that guy is, but he does a lot of talking about possessions, talking about demons, talking about how to protect yourself spiritually, talking about angels and guardian angels. He's got a lot of stuff on YouTube. You can find it. It's not his channel. It's typically other people recording his talks. But he was going along the same lines, and he was talking about the Harry Potter series. But his main point was the same as that other priest, that you need to really be careful about what you're letting in. Because it can open you up to, in his words, demonic forces. It can open you up to where you might lose salvation, right? It can cause you to pull away from Christ, depending on what you're watching and seeing. And where this clicked for me this week is I had started watching the series The Titans on, and it's a superhero thing. And premise of this, I'm not going to do too any spoilers here. So if you haven't watched it and you want to watch it, don't worry, you can keep listening. But it's basically all the sidekicks in the DC universe get a team and they do the superhero thing and save the world. But the series is very, 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 very dark. Every character in that series is a broken person. They've all experienced horrible loss, and most of them have. And how they're dealing with it is beating up bad guys, which isn't necessarily the best way to deal with a loss. But I digress. But the very first episode, I'm watching this, and one of the opening scenes is this girl that's a teenager, and she's having this nightmare, and she wakes up, and her mom comes in, and her mom's like, "Honey, are you okay?" She's like, "Yeah, it was just a bad dream. I'm fine." And the mom walks out, and she closes the door and has this like fearful relief look on her face. And what you see on the door is a bunch of crucifixes. You see pictures of Mary on there. And then you see two deadbolts because she's locking the door to her teenage daughter's room. And then next time you see this mom, it's her waking up the next morning. And on her nightstand is a statue of Mary, her rosary beads, a wine cork, and a half-drinking or not finished glass of wine with some pills. And the reason I'm bringing this up, and be careful what you're letting in. What if you're somebody that's grown up Catholic, and you've been really questioning your faith, and you're like, why am I doing this? It's like some of this Catholic stuff is crazy. And then you see images like that, and it reaffirms these doubts that have been put in your head. And it pulls you further away from Christ. And so moving forward with this Lenten season, I think one thing that we all should do is take a look at what we're consuming. And ask the simple question, is this bringing me closer to Christ? Is this bringing me closer to sainthood, or is it pulling me away from that? I mean, it could be down to the bands you're listening to. Is listening to Lady Gaga helping me? Or is it not? Is it watching violent, sex-filled movies? Is that helping me get closer to Christ? Or is it not? Is that TV show I love, like, let's say The Bachelor, or which I still haven't watched any of that stuff. But let's say you love watching that because of the drama. Is that helping you? Is that bringing you closer to Christ? And so maybe for this Lenten season, we kind of take an examination of the things we're using to entertain ourselves and that we're letting in, and ask that simple question. Is this bringing me closer to sainthood, or is it not? And then maybe for Lent, you cut that thing out because you realize, man, I'm spending hours watching this show, and it is not helping me at all. Maybe it's social media for you. And for me, there's, I got Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, and some of those social medias, I mean, YouTube also, right, is kind of a social media platform. Some of those I'm fine with. It's not pulling me away from Christ. But things like Instagram, I deleted the app because it wasn't helping me with my walk. It wasn't helping improve myself. No matter how much I want to lie to myself that constantly seeing the images of those Insta models on my screen weren't having an effect on me, the honest to God truth is they were. And so I cut that out. Maybe for you that's not an issue, and so you don't have to cut it out. But for me, that was one thing. And so looking at everything, maybe for this Lent, instead of, cutting out that glass of wine, because maybe you have a glass of wine every night when you go to bed, or before bed, just to kind of relax after dinner where you're watching TV. Are you getting drunk? Is it causing you to sin to have that glass of wine? Probably not. I mean, if you're drinking a bottle or two, it might be a good thing to cut out for Lent. But if it's in total moderation, you're not drunk, it's just taking the edge off, that's probably not causing any issues with your salvation. But maybe the show you're watching while you're drinking your glass of wine, maybe that one is. And maybe you cut that out. And I think that's an interesting exercise to go through. Because to each of us, there is stuff in our lives that puts us in a situation where it's just begs us to sin. It begs us to reject Christ. And everybody has their own thing. And so just do kind of a self-examination in the next few days, because obviously Ash Wednesday is coming right up, and go, okay, I'm doing this. You know what? That's okay. That's actually not doing that. But you know what? This is putting bad stuff in my brain. It's images I shouldn't be seeing. I need to stop doing that. And maybe take that away for Lent. Whether it's Instagram, whether it's porn, whether it's action movies, whatever your flavor is there that's causing you to sin, step away from that situation for Lent. And so the other thing that I like to do during Lent, and this other thought that I had, was instead of it being always just I'm not going to do this for Lent, like I'm giving up, right? You hear that phrase, I'm giving this up for Lent. Why don't you do something for Lent? Do a positive, right? And maybe your positive, for me this year, my positive, I'm going to be doing morning prayers. And honestly, I want to actually learn some Latin prayers. I really want to learn Latin. But I don't know if I'm going to dive there for Lent. That might be a little bit further down the road for me. But that's what I'm going to do. And I'm also going to be doing intermittent fasting. So that's going to be the thing I'm giving up. I'm giving up breakfast. So I feel like it's kind of a give or take. And I think each of us need to examine our lives, examine the things that are influencing us. And is it influencing us for the good, or is it influencing us for the worse? And if we can do that and honestly look at ourselves, we're going to be better off. And we might have a great Lenten season. Those are kind of my thoughts on Lent. I hope it's informative. I hope it gives you some ideas on what to do for this Lenten season. And I would definitely recommend try and keep it simple. Don't go crazy complicated with it. Because if you're like me, if you make it too hard, it's gonna be really hard to stick with. But try and keep it simple. And hopefully, I'm praying that everybody that watches this, that you guys have a great Lent. I'll definitely be praying for y'all. Pray for me, and and let's get prepared. Let's work on our sainthood. So that's it for today. I hope y'all enjoyed this video. I hope it was informative. Again, please like, share, and subscribe. I'm blown away by the amount of subscribers I'm getting on this channel. It's crazy. So let's keep it up. I really want this to be a positive force in the world here that's just seems to be crazy. So that's it for today's video. Hope you guys enjoyed it. Talk to y'all later, and have a good day.